And he's a person that I can call at 3 a.m. in the morning, and without hesitation, he's there. He's held my hand through everything. He is outstanding. And I hate to cry, sorry, but he's the type of person that would give you the shirt off his back if it was his last shirt. And he would walk with you in the rain. He would, the old gentleman who would put his coat over a puddle so that you wouldn't have to step in it and ruin your shoes. That is him. He's the only person, the only man that my parents have ever approved of. And we don't even date. He's my best friend. But everyone says that we're getting married. But he is truly, when you define a gentleman, you see Dante's picture. When you design someone who's outstanding, a hard worker, who is dedicated, who's loyal, you see Dante. When you see someone that has the heart of gold, who will work his butt off for you, who can hold down a family, who you want your kids to be raised by, that's who you look for. You look at Dante. That's the type of person he is. He's the true definition of a gentleman.
Do you have any examples of times when Dante showed that he would give the shirt off his back or a similar situation?
The very first weekend we ever hung out, we went out just, I think, to eat, and it was like cold outside, and he took the sweatshirt right off his back and gave it to me. And I will never forget that, because it was just like, wow, okay, and we were just friends, would not leave. After everyone left, after all my coworkers left, he was still there helping me clean up.
Is there anything you want to tell the court to aid in a just sentence for Dante?
I mean, Dante is not someone that breaks rules. He's not someone that you see that, for instance, you watch shows like Locked Up. A person who would ever wish ill on anyone. He's a gentle giant, basically. He wouldn't hurt a fly. That's just who he is.
I don't have anything else.
Cross?
None, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Chica Ofwan.
Yes.
Please state your name.
Chica Ofwani.
And are you in school?
I am.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about your education.
Well, I'm currently pursuing my PhD in counseling psychology at the University of Georgia, and I'm on internship at the University of South Florida currently.
And so you drove up from Tampa to be here today, is that correct?
Yes.
How do you know Dante Martin?
I know him from college. I was a cheerleader throughout college, and he was in the Marching 100.
What's the connection?
Cheerleaders and band members often had to ride to many university events together and travel together throughout our years.
So did you get to know Dante Martin?
Yes.
What kind of person is he?
Dante is a loving, charitable, generous, charismatic. I'm so sorry. A wonderful human being. And generous, like I said.
And you know you knew him doing school, right?
I'm sorry?
You knew him while he was in school.
Yes.
Together. Did you know whether he worked?
Yes, he worked a lot. He was often really just trying to raise money for his tuition or for books and just to get through college, as all of us were.
Do you know of anything else he did while he was in school to mentor young people or to help anybody?
I can't speak to mentoring young people or children or anything like that. But as far as helping, yes, he's just, as some of the witnesses said, he's just always there. And if he had the opportunity actually to mentor children, I don't doubt that he would. But I can't speak to that specifically.
Is there anything else you want the court to know about Dante Martin?
As I wrote in my letter, I do not believe that he is a criminal. I believe that Dante, with any opportunity to improve himself, improve society and community, and continue to be a contributing citizen, he will do it. I do believe that.
And the issue that I talked to some of the other witnesses about concerning a bond on appeal, do you have any doubt that Mr. Martin would fulfill his obligation to appear before the court at any time?
I don't think that he would ever jeopardize that.
I don't have anything else.
Thank you.
No cross?
No cross, Your Honor.
Thank you. Call your next witness.
Brian Hooper. State your name.
Brian Hooper.
And where do you live?
I live in Tallahassee, Florida.
And what do you do for a living?
I'm a faculty member at Tallahassee Community College, and I'm a doctoral student in the field of public health.
And you also have a business?
Yes, I also own a fitness training business.
And how do you know Dante?
I've known Dante since 2005, I believe, going on about 10 years right now. I met him in the band. I was already a member of the Marching 100 when he came.
And it's true that you were roommates at one point?
Yes, we did live together for approximately 4 years.
Tell the court about that experience with Dante.
When I think Dante, I think dependable. Dante is always the guy that, much as to the testament of everyone else, if you need something, he's there. Dante is the individual that if you approach him with an idea, just in passing, he's the one that changes the pronoun from you to us instead of saying, oh, what are you going to do about that? Even if he's completely disconnected from the situation, he'll say, well, what should we do? How can we make this situation better? Dante's always been a very dependable and altruistic individual.
And talk a little bit about a mentoring program you were involved with a long time.
Okay, well, actually, in the Marching 100, we were involved in a mentoring program where we mentored the younger band members. The matriculation statistics regarding band members that were actually going on to graduate was very low. So I'm not familiar with who actually started the program, but Dante and I participated in the program to mentor the young band members. The culture of the Marching 100, people are so excited about performing that they often forget their educational obligations.
And so was that time you were paid for?
No, that was all on a voluntary basis.
And so there was no school credit, that's just something you all did?
Yeah, there was just a need, and we just tried to fulfill that need.
Do you have any other examples of Dante helping?
I have countless examples. For me, personally, I see Dante as a younger brother, and that's twofold because, again, he came in the band years after I had already been there, but I've learned so much from him, much as to the testament of everyone else that testified. He's very, very hardworking. He was also very influential in me starting my own business. I had been working for several gyms for years, and we were just talking and passing. He was like, "You're great at this. You should start your own." And he was also just very supportive in helping me. And anybody that knows Dante can attest to the same fact.
And you were able to witness his ability to teach others, to talk to others in a mentoring program. Right?
Yes.
And so how would you characterize his ability to communicate and to teach others?
Dante is a born leader. He takes whatever the circumstances are, and he's able to pull positivity from that. And he can take that positivity and transform it into some sort of ideology or some sort of thought process that he wants the person that he's mentoring or whoever he's working with to adopt for their own benefit.
Is there anything else you want to tell the court about Mr. Martin?
When I think of Dante Martin, I just think of highest quality in character. He's He's always the person. He's always the go-to guy in any situation. As you've heard previously, in his work situation, in his personal life, he's always the go-to guy. He's always been that. I don't think that's something that you can teach. That's just something that you're endowed with at birth, and he's always been that person since I've known him.
I don't have anything else.
Cross?
Did you ever cross bus C?
Yes, I did.
All right. Did you think it was a good idea?
At the time, yes.
All right. You still think it's a good idea?
No, I don't believe that it's a good idea because of, while I was actually a member of the Marching 100 in Bus C, to speak toward the culture of the Marching 100, it is something that's coveted. It is something that you actually have to pursue. It's more of a something that's gilded upon you, like, yes, I've actually become a member. You actually have to pursue it.
All right. So you're saying here, being coveted, being part of this membership to Bus C, you kind of felt the pressure to have to go down into this Bus C crossing?
No, not at all. It wasn't a pressure situation. It was more of a desire. The Bus C was really only, again, you had to pursue that membership, and it was only open to the members that were already in high standing, the members that were already in the highest regard of the band. I was a leader in the band. I was a leader in my section, as well as everybody else that was a part of Bus C.
All right, so as a leader, as a mentor, you think it's a good idea to beat each other?
No, that's not what I said.
But that's what you're saying. You're saying you guys have mentorship. You're out there mentoring the community. You're out mentoring one another. But part of your mentoring and part of being a leader is going across this threshold of Bus C.
Right.
All right. And it didn't dawn on you that this was a bad idea?
In the collegiate atmosphere, no, I did not. Again, as you spoke on yourself, Bus C has a long history for decades, so there was no pressure. It's just something, it's seen as the natural state of progression. And at no point throughout my time in the college or my tenure in the Marching 100 was it seen as anything malicious.
All right. Now, you said it's history. Now, history has a lot of bad history, especially within the United States, especially towards African Americans. And you think just because it's history, we should just keep repeating those things?
No. As I understand these things, the first question you asked me, do I think it's a good idea now? Now that I've matriculated through college and achieved certain things professionally, there are certain risks that I would not ensue because I've achieved certain things in my professional career. But again, in the collegiate arena, being between the ages of 18 through 24, again, even insurance salesmen will tell you that those are the years that individuals make the worst decisions. So, of course, yes, back then I thought it was a great idea. Now would I do so? No.
All right. And as the leaders, did you not think as being a leader that it might be a good idea to say, let's not do this. Let's not tone this down. Let's tone it down at least a bit. Let's not make it as savage. No.
You used the word savage. There was actually nothing savage about the bus. Yes, there was a process. Yes, it was designed to impede an individual's progress toward the end of the bus. But there was nothing, again, a lot of the times the individual that was going through, he or she pursued that. He or she actually enjoyed it. I'm not saying that in the case of Robert Champion that it was something enjoyable, of course, because it led to his demise. But I think the picture that's being painted on it is one-sided.
So you think people actually enjoy going down a bus, down that narrow spot between the seats, and they enjoy being punched and kicked repeatedly? No,
I'm not saying that they enjoy the actual act of it, but they enjoy the after effect. I don't enjoy going to class every day, but I'm going to enjoy the benefits of having my PhD. So again, the Bus C was sort of a means to an end, but it was something that the individuals desired to be a part of. There was no pressure of it.
It's a means to an end. What is the end?
Being a part of the upper echelon.
Okay, and the only way you can be part of the upper echelon, the only way you can achieve that respect within the organization is to have undergone the gauntlet.
No, the only way you could be part of the upper echelon of Bus C was to go through the gauntlet. But there were plenty of members in the upper echelon of the band who were very well respected, whose positions were very well coveted, that had nothing to do with Bus C.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Now, you're aware of crossing Bus C and that whole process. In your whole history and knowledge of the tradition of crossing Bus C, have you ever heard of anybody that has died as a result of it?
No, not at all. From my understanding, Bus C has been withstanding since the late 60s.
And can we agree then that it would be beneficial for young people to know that this is a potential result of what can happen?
I would definitely agree with that, because as I told the attorney, while you're a part of it and while you're in that collegiate atmosphere, you don't really think about the things that can happen. You don't really necessarily think about that. You just understand that I'm having fun. This is a part of something that I want to do. There's no malicious intent, but again, as a college student, oftentimes you don't think about the ramifications of any decisions that you make.
Let me ask you this, based on your experience as a student, your experience as a mentor, and now your experience as a professor, a teacher, do you think that a student or a young kid, a high school kid, let's say, is more likely to listen to a young person who's been through a horrible situation as opposed to a faculty member saying, you shouldn't do this?
Yes, research has shown that to get to a person, the easiest way is to build a rapport. Of course, they're more likely to listen to someone who's closer to their age cohort and who's actually been through it than someone who's projecting about it who has actually no personal dealings with any of the incidents.
And just to be clear, we can agree that in your experience and your knowledge of crossing bus C, it's 100% voluntary.
Yes, completely.
And nobody pressures anybody to do it.
No, not at all.
And nobody coerces anybody to do it.
No.
And nobody puts anybody down if they don't do it.
No.
Thank you.
Anything further from you, Mr. Interlicchio?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kayla Dumas. Please state your name.
My name is Kayla Nicole Dumas.
And are you in school or are you working?
Yes, I work and I'm in school.
Okay. And what do you do for a living?
I'm a bartender.
Okay. And where do you go to school?
I go to school at Florida A&M University.
And do you know Dante Martin?
Yes, absolutely.
How do you know him?
Dante is one of my best friends.
And how long have you known him?
Since 2010.
What do you want the court to know about Dante Martin?
Dante is a wonderful individual. He's giving, he's loving. He, as stated previously, he would give you his last. He would give you the shirt off his back if it was the last thing he had and it was what you needed. He's a great mentor. He's wonderful at his job. I love his job. I love the restaurant because of Dante. And there's so many amazing things that I could say about him. It's endless.
Well, why don't you tell us?
Well, just as an example, with knowing Dante, when I first met him, he was currently a student as well, and we were in similar situations as far as working and being in school. And I know that.
What do you mean by that, working and being in school?
Having to work to pay for school and having to have both of those obligations and fulfill them with no complaints. And when he wasn't at school, he was working, and if he had any free time, he was helping out in the community.
And tell me about that. How would he help out in the community?
With his program and his major, he mentored underprivileged youth as well as young kids in the community with football. He would help out after school and assist them with anything that they needed. There was even an instance where some of the younger players needed equipment to play in co-curricular activities with football. They funded their equipment with his own money.
Okay, so basically he bought some of the shoes so they could play, right?
Absolutely.
And what else do you want the court to know about Dante Martin?
There have just been so many instances to where I've been like, wow, what an amazing individual. There's another situation to where Dante and I had went out to eat, and a homeless man had approached us, and Dante ended up helping the homeless man and assisted him and gave the man his contact information. And we later found out that Dante had helped the man go into a veterans rehabilitation center and find himself employment, all from just having a small talk with him. He's left that much of an impression, of people of the community, when you think of someone homeless or who doesn't have anything, getting to that and just having a conversation with Dante, that should speak volumes of his character.
Is there anything else you want the court to know?
I miss him. He's my best friend, and I know a lot of people can say the same thing about who he is, and I know that he is very, very influential in the community, and without him being in the community, it would be a great loss. He's a very great person. He's willing to do whatever he needs to do in order to help someone else. So.
Okay, I don't have anything else.
Cross?
None, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Call your next witness.
Colonel Leonard Wellington.
Do you sami swear consequences if you should
I do.
Please state your name.
Leonard E. Wellington, Jr.
And you're a retired colonel?
I'm a retired Air Force rank, Colonel, grade 06, commonly referred to as a full colonel.
And what other things have you done in your life? What other professions have you undertaken?
I'm also a retired school teacher, and I taught and 14 years in Hazing County, Georgia schools.
And what do you do now?
I'm retired.
Where do you?
I live in Tallahassee.
How do you know Dante Martin?
From Food Goers Food as the head waiter at the restaurant, and the court has asked for brevity, and I'm going to ditto and echo all of the comments from other witnesses about his dependability, his integrity, and his willingness to help others, and the fact that he's just an outstanding member of society. I would like to address, if you would please, my experience as a teacher. As a teacher at Mount Robbins High School, I used to invite all of my former students to come back and speak to my science classes about what they experienced in the, quote, real world. I later transferred to Hazing County Career and Technology Center, and at that school, they had an ongoing program to where all of the graduates would come back and speak to the entire class on career day. We found that it's a given that young people listen to their peers more readily than to us old folk. So as a result of this, we had instances where just listening to someone who had been there caused young people to think about their own circumstances and to make career changes or adjustments in their behavior. We saw in both instances where kids would come up and talk to the person who had spoke and thank them for having been able to clarify something for them that they were witnessing or experiencing. On a personal note, I experienced something similar in terms of peer-on-peer relationships. As an upcoming sophomore in college, the state of Tennessee adopted a program whereby they wanted young adults to go into the reformatory and be mentors and counselors for the kids that were in the reformatory. I was fortunate enough to have been chosen for that summer, one of two counselors at Pikeville, Tennessee reformatory, to serve as a mentor, as a counselor, as a guide to let those incarcerated see that there's something else other than the life that they had chosen. So from my experience, both in the military and as a teacher, being able to have someone to talk to, being able to see someone who has walked in your shoes is beneficial to today's youth. They need that.
I don't have anything else, Judge.
Cross?
None. Thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you.
Call your next witness.
Eddie Martin Jr.
Please solemnly swear upon testimony that you give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. Please state your name.
Eddie Joe Martin Jr.
And are you related to Dante Martin?
Yes, I'm his older brother.
And how much older are you than him?
20 plus years.
Okay. And you have the same father, is that right?
Yes, sir, we do.
What's your father's name?
Eddie Joe Martin Sr.
Okay. Was he able to come here today?
No, he wasn't.
And why not?
My dad had a stroke October 27th, the beginning of the trial here. So he's not strong enough to make it, so I wouldn't let him come.
Okay. And so where is he now?
He's home. He's out of the rehabilitation center. He's home now.
Okay. And has he spoken to you about the stress of Dante's trial on him?
Yes, he did. We've talked a lot about this, and the main thing Daddy keeps talking to me about is that he would like me to tell the Champion family that how sorry he is the loss of their son. He don't, and we don't know none of the pain that they're going through, but we're just so very sorry any of this mess happened. And my dad wanted me to personally tell him that.
Tell who?
Mr. Champion and his wife. He also asked that if I could just shake Mr. Champion's hand and reiterate that he's very sorry that this happened. I'm sorry from the Lord that any of this mess happened.
How do you feel about it?
Oh, I'm devastated. I've been here since the 27th watching the people, the Champion family seem to be a great, great family. Our family, the Martins, are hurting too for them. We cannot express how sorry any of this mess, how sorry any of this mess happened. And if it would be anything that we could do to change things, we would. Our brother Dante, he could have went a lot of roads. He could have went the roads with drugs, not trying to go to school, but Dante made a different choice than I made, to be honest. A different choice. Dante wanted to go to school. Okay, it started out real easy for him. Our mom, she's not rich by any means necessary. But Dante stepped up. Dante worked. He got a job. He worked. He wanted to pay his own tuition so it wouldn't be much of a burden on our mom. He was out trying to do the right thing in the world. This incident that happened, man, we were just so very sorry that it happened to the Champion family. We're sorry that our loved one is any kind of way involved. And we would just ask the court to, if it's any way that it could be easy as possible. In other words, it could have went a lot of different roads. He didn't. He was in school, working, enjoying himself. I've never met a 16-year-old without a speeding ticket. He was doing the right thing, Your Honor. I was just sorry this incident happened. And
did you make your father a promise?
I did make my dad a promise, and with the court, with Your Honor permission, I would like to shake Mr. Champion's hand in this courtroom and to tell him again, the Martin family is so very sorry that they lost a child in this mess. So with the judge's permission, and when he's done with me, may I just shake Mr. Champion's hand?
Do you have anything further
No,
for
I
this
don't,
witness?
Judge.
Do you wish to cross-examine this witness?
No, I don't, Your Honor.
Mr. Martin, I'm unable to order Mr. Champion to do anything. What he does outside of this courtroom is entirely up to him.
Understand.
So if you would now take your seat.
Thank you.
And please call your next witness.
Michelle Martin. Please state your name.
Michelle Martin.
And how are you related to Dante Martin?
I'm his sister.
And what do you do for a living?
I'm a medical assistant.
And you live down in Tampa?
Yes, I do.
Tell the court about your brother.
There's so many words that I can come up with to say about my brother. But the biggest thing is Dante has a heart of gold. He's very caring, he's very loving. Of course, we've had our sibling rivalries, as all of siblings do. But I would do anything in the world for my brother. Anything in the world. Excuse me, sorry. Dante is the type of person who would give his last. I have an 18-year-old son that really looks up to Dante. They're more like brothers than they are uncle and nephew. He cherished the road that Dante walks on, and he's been there since day one. I remember when I went into labor, Dante was really upset because they would not let him stay in the room until I gave birth to my son. It really hurt him, but from that moment on, those two were very inseparable. I understand the situation at hand here, and I'm really deeply sorry that any parent is suffering from the loss of a child. I do not wish that on anyone. But Dante would have never in his life purposely do anything to hurt anybody. I recall a time when I personally had to have surgery, and Dante was supposed to be away at school. He would not leave until he knew that I was okay for my surgery. He took care of me. He took care of my son. It even got to the point one time when I literally had to put Dante out of my room. Because every time when they say the time was up for me to take another pain pill, he was right there. I'm like, Dante, please, I don't need it right now. That's just the type of person Dante is. Very caring and very loving. And it breaks my heart for my family as well as the Champion family for this stuff going on.
Anything else, Judge?
Cross?
None, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Call your next witness.
Call Dante's mother.
Name, please.
state your name?
Maddie Martin.
Okay. You're Dante's mother.
Yes.
What do you want before I ask you a little bit about your son, you know that Dante was an excellent student in high school, right?
Yes.
And was he offered scholarships to other colleges?
Yes.
To where?
Florida State, University in Miami, and University of Central Florida.
And what sort of scholarships were those?
Academic scholarships.
Okay. And was it where they were going to pretty much pay for everything?
Pretty much.
And what about Florida A&M?
They didn't offer him a scholarship.
And tell me how that came about. How did he come to end up at Florida A&M?
When Dante was in high school, it was a member that was working with them with the band after school, and he attended Florida A&M, and he showed Dante movies and slides of them, and he liked the way they marched, so he was determined to go to Florida A&M.
And what was your feeling when you got the letter from Florida A&M that he was accepted?
I didn't want Dante to go to Florida A&M because they didn't offer him any type of scholarship. I asked him to take the scholarship to Florida State. I actually hid the letter in acceptance.
You hid the letter?
Yes, because I didn't want him to go. And then my daughter, she gave him the letter. She told him about it.
And what kind of what kind of a boy was Dante growing up?
Dante was well behaved. Never had any problems with him.
Did you ever have to discipline him?
I think I disciplined Dante twice in his entire life. But he was very good kid, very giving. He went as a teenager. He never went out. I used to try to get him to go to things. He would go to school, go to work, march in the band. That was mostly his life. Or I remember when he was in elementary school, he took his lunch money and gave it to a child that didn't have money. And when I picked him up in school, he said, "Mom, I'm so hungry." I said, "Well, I gave you lunch money." He said, "But this little boy was there, and he was so hungry he didn't have any money. So I gave him mine." Because he said, "I know I would eat when I got home, but I wasn't sure about this little boy." So I said, "Dante, don't do that again." I said, "What you do, you buy lunch and you share with him." But that's the type of person he was.
And was he a materialistic, greedy child?
No, he wasn't. He never asked for anything when he was growing up.
Not even for Christmas?
Not even for Christmas. We had a hard time with him trying to buy something for him for Christmas. We asked him, "What do you want?" "Whatever you give me." He said, "Whatever you give me." So one year, we bought him undershirts and underpants, and we wrapped it up and gave it to him. He was so happy just to get that. My daughter was opening her gifts and she had these nice things. He never said anything. So later we took out his gifts and we gave it to him. He said, "Oh, thank you." He was more excited about those underclothes than he was anything. And he said, "Don't spend all your money on me." He was always that type of person. When Dante became a teenager, he had a job and he helped me because his father and I, we divorced when he was 15 years old. And he stepped up, became the man of the house. He would take his money and try to pay the bills. I said, "No, you take your money and you spend it on yourself." But he wasn't like that. He would put money in my account that I didn't even know. That's just the type of person he is.
And that was as a teenager?
Yes.
And once he went off to school, was he the type that was always asking you for money?
No, he never asked for anything. Dante was working 2 jobs. He had the Bright Future Scholarship, but he still worked 2 jobs. And then I found out his grades was failing because he was working 2 jobs and marching in the band. I told him he had to give one up. And I remember one night he didn't have food. He wouldn't call me, but he called his sister. And she had to order food for him. And I said, "Why didn't you call me? I didn't want to worry you." That was this. You know, I know you have bills to pay. I don't want to worry you.
Now, has Dante spoken to you about how he feels about what happened?
Dante's a very private person. He doesn't like for the spotlight to be on him, but he was devastated after that happened. Remember, he cried all night. He didn't eat for a few days. He was very devastated.
Was he crying for himself?
No. He said he was crying for the Champion family. He said, Mom, they lost a child. I don't know what it is to lose a child, but I know it has to be painful. That's what Dante, he put everyone before he put himself.
Is there anything else you want the court to know about your son?
No, I don't want you to know. My son, always a giving person. He would give his last. He was giving his best. He was an honor student all the way through school, from kindergarten up to high school. I never had problems. I never had to pressure him about doing well in school. He was determined to do better because he wanted to take care of me. In fact, Dante, the year that happened, Dante didn't want to march that year. He wanted to march because of me, because I asked him to march that year. He was offered a job as a manager at the restaurant. And he said, Mom, I'm going to take that job. Then I said, wait until after the class. I want to see you march your last year. And he said, okay, I will do it for you. And that's what happened.
And how do you feel about the Champions losing their son?
I feel terrible. I lost a son, not in a tragic manner. They lost theirs. But I know the pain. I know the emptiness. I know the grief you go through. I will never wish that upon anyone. It's not any words I can say that I could give them their son back. But I'm truly sorry that happened. Truly sorry. I don't want no one to feel that pain. No one.
I don't have anything else, Judge.
Cross-examine.
None, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Call your next witness.
Judge, the only witness I have left is Mr. Martin wishes to apologize to the Champion family. I don't know if the court wishes him to do it now or after they address the court.
Did Mr. Martin, who testified?
No, I'm sorry, Dante Martin, Judge.
Mr. Dante Martin.
Yes.
I see. Okay, he can do that.
Please state your name.
Dante Marquise Martin.
And Mr. Martin, I understand that you want to address the Champion family. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Please do.
Mr. and Mrs. Champion, family and friends. I was told I could be given the opportunity to speak to you. And my mind followed all last night. What can I say? What should I say? I could literally come up with nothing. So I'm literally just have to speak to you from my heart. I really don't know how I could actually even say sorry to you. I know how everything has affected me emotionally and psychologically. Therefore, I can never understand the burden of you losing your son. If there was a way, I wish the pain that you feel, that I could take that away from you and carry that pain for you. There's nothing I could do to bring your son back. I know. every morning when I wake up, every night before I go to sleep, I pray for you and your family. Because I don't know how you feel. I can't imagine. But every day, I pray that God gives you strength and healing and peace. I know that's not easy, especially with the tragic way that everything happened. This is something that I will live with the rest of my life. Robert Champion, November 19th, 2011, will always be in my life. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about your son or your family. From the bottom of my heart, it's not a day. When I say my prayers for my family, I say prayers for you as well. Sometimes in life, we just go with what is tradition. We don't second guess it. We don't doubt it. It's just that was presented to you, and we went with it. But at the same time, when you have such traditions, nobody who's been through it ever speaks out against the tradition, even when they realize that it's not a good idea. I made a goal, it's a determination to speak out against this type of stuff because it's so prevalent in our society, and we don't even think about the consequences that could happen, especially in the collegiate level. We just do it. And I've actually moved forward and have had several opportunities to try to speak out against it. With the current situation, I'm not able to, but when the opportunity arises, I'm going to be one of the few people that have been through the situation, lived the situation, endured. No type of pain that you endure, but I do have the pain. And hopefully, people will take heed. I tell you, anybody who knows me and knows about the situation, there's nothing I can say. It's a dark and gloomy situation. But I tell everybody that eventually there will be some good that comes from this. Robert's spirit and memory will definitely live on because it will prevent, it's my sincere hope, it will prevent from any other families from hurting. No family will ever be in this situation again on either side of this court. And that is one of my goals in life. I honestly am ashamed that I can even remotely be a part or associated with anything that could take a life of another human being. And it hurts me. It truly hurts me. My only hope and prayer now is that some way in your eyes that you would not view me with wrath or anger or view me as wicked. I know It may never happen. I know it may take a lot of time, but I want you to be able to see who I truly am. And I'm terribly sorry.
No cross-examination.
You can return to your seat. Do you have anything else, Mr. Michaels? Mr. Emelicchio.
Yes, Your Honor, if I just Your Honor, the state will only be calling two people speaking to victims, parents. I'll start with Mr. Champion.
Mr. He doesn't need to be sworn as well.
Now, you state your name for the record.
My name is Robert Champion, the father of Robert Champion.
And your son, the deceased, is Champion.
Yes.
Tell the court how this has impacted your life.
It had took a part of my heart. We heard about Mr. Martin, but I wanted to tell you a little bit about my son. I've seen him at day one. I've seen him come into the world. And I've raised him ever since. And I couldn't ask for a better son because he showed his character. I never had to worry about my son going somewhere to get him out of jail or trying to hurt somebody or just trying to do drugs, none of that. He was truly giving me any problems. But one of his goals was to go to school and teach, be a positive citizen in life. Early, when he was in high school, he said, "Dad, I want to go to school." He was excited when we were trying to get funds for him to go. Insurance, through insurance or whatever, how to make sure that he followed his dream. And he was very excited to go to school. Just wanted to teach. Make sure that his talent he shared with everybody else. That was his dream. And my son, just like anybody else, he loved people. When I went down to pick him up to bring him back from, home from a holiday, there was two young ladies there. Didn't know how they were going to get back home for the holiday. I drove a work van with 2 seats in it. I said, "Robert, I don't have but 2 seats." He said, "Well, Dad, I'll get in the back. But I'm not going to leave these young ladies down here not with a way to get back home." He cared that much about people. We got those young ladies back home. Just wanted to do right. Just wanted to make sure that he can share his love, his experience of music to help somebody. My son was against hazing. Not one time in the court have you heard that my son put his hand on anybody. That haven't been brought up. Just want to go to school. Didn't believe in violence. But had to be put in a situation where if you go this way, it's hell. If you go this way, it's hell. No way out. A school that in tradition, thinking that hazing is a part of the college experience. Thinking that this will make a better student, a better person, a better band member. And it's still going on today. Unfortunately, my son had to lose his life because a school let this go on for over 50 years, Florida A&M. Then step up to the plate and call this has got to stop. My son had to lose his life because the school thinking that people that go to the school had to go through this tradition. This young man here had to face wherever he gonna go through, he got to face because no one's stepping up to say enough is enough. And right the day you turn on the news, you hear people still coming home from school in body bags. Right today, if you turn on your TV, look at the news, or look it up on it, right today. I'm sorry for this young man. And my heart goes out to his family. But today we got to set an example that this has got to stop now. And unfortunately, Robert was used to say, enough is enough. This is a cry out. We got too many kids in school crying out that don't have no way out, saying this is enough. If we don't show an example, this is going to continue. Some other family going to be in here. So we need to step up, all of us, to make sure that this don't happen again. Thank you.
Do you have any questions for Mr. Champion? Thank you, Mr. Champion.
And the state will be calling Robert Champion's mother.
Just have a seat, Mrs. Champion.
Can you introduce yourself to everyone in the courtroom?
My name is Pam Champion. I'm the mother of Robert Darnell Champion. He's my second born. And like my husband said, before I start with what I have to say, I want to thank your lawyers here because he did his homework about Robert and how he excelled in everything that he set out to do. He was the top. He was the best, and he was a leader. And so I want to thank you for doing that homework and saying those things during the trial, because that says that he does work hard. But there are things you forgot or may have purposely left out. So I think I should enlighten everybody about my son, because I've heard a lot of testimony about Mr. Martin and all the things and the good things that he's done. And I've come here many times sitting right in either one side or the other side, hearing about all the people that brutally killed my son, about how good and how outstanding person they were. But I didn't hear anybody standing up and saying anything about Robert. So before I say that, what I have to say to you, Mr. Martin, let me let everyone know about my son, Robert. He loved music. His first exposure to music was at a parade. And from that day on, in seeing the drum majors, he called them gentlemen. That's what he called them. As he grew up, he was determined that he wanted to be a drum major. And he loved music. He excelled in music in middle school. He directed the orchestra in his middle school. And it only transferred his first experience in high school was in the 8th grade, marching with his high school band. His first performance he conducted, I was worried about being able to spot my son on the field. And I'm sure people that know him knows exactly how he performs. But in the midst of his high school first performance out on the field, I had no problems identifying my son. Because if they jumped, he jumped higher. If they squatted down, he squatted lower. If they marched high, he marched higher. So I never had a problem in finding him. That transition all the way through college. I was against him joining that band. But I know Robert. He was determined. But another piece that you guys don't know about Robert is he was known as being against by violence and the brutality in the band. That you could have found out as well, Mr. Attorney. Because he also mentors people right in that band. Because unlike what people are saying with the band that you didn't have to, it's like my husband stated, if you did, you went through the hell part of it. If you didn't, you went through the hell part of it, but you didn't. Because the idea was that you had to be a part of that culture. Well, Robert wasn't. From the time he's entered FAMU, he never took part in it. His first year in the band, I said, well, Robert, how is it? And he used to talk about his section leader, how she was always on his case, messing with him and saying things to him. And I said, well, Robert, you need to tell the band director. He said, oh, Mama, it's not that serious. I don't know what's wrong with her. She probably just having a hard time. And he'd brush it off like that. But Robert would mentor. And I think you know, every time Robert was an approach, that he would tell you, you know where I stand. I think you know that. That's part of things that, looking at the investigation and finding out what's going on. But the thing about it is that you're right. You don't know what it's like to lose a son. Your mother says she lost a son, but you don't know what it's like to lose a son and realize that nobody cares about the fact of what happened to your son. And you sit and you hear it over and over again that the person that killed your son, oh, they're good, they're great, and you may be. And I have no ill will towards you. But I just want you people to know that, yes, I have turned in names to people that he used to sit and mentor and talk to right in the band to try to ask them not to join that, not to be a part of it. You don't have to. I've talked to people where he has walked in the caf because he worked in the caf at the school and see some of his fellow band members sitting there crying and upset because of what? The repercussions of them not going ahead and being part of the thing. And he would assure and take them. I've seen Robert work 4 jobs because he too took it on and paying for his own school. He never asked for anything. When he came, whenever I would call, you just go ahead and put stuff in his account because you know he needs it. This Robert would come home every summer and work with the band camp right there at Clark, Atlanta, helping mentoring students. He still worked with his high school band and helping mentoring those students. He'd work with preschool students, helping them with music, showing them how he puts together, because Robert played the drums within his church. As his church member, every time Robert was home, Robert did not leave until Sunday afternoon because he stayed to play for the band, for the church services. So they looked forward to any time he was, Miss Champion, Pam, when is he coming home? Those are the things that says to who Robert was. So yes, he was a loving, caring person. Robert didn't have anyone that he hated. I have never seen Robert angry at his own 2 sisters. Imagine being in the middle of 2 girls. Robert would always call his grandmother, his aunt, me, his sisters, just to say check and see how they're doing. That was Robert. he would always check on their friends. When he was when he was home, if he talked to somebody and they found out they was going to FAMU, he'd tell them, "Don't worry, I'll take care of them." He meant it. But what I'd like to do is to go ahead and read what I had written, because I, like you, each time I come here and speak to the people that have done this crime, I have something I'd like to share. So I have learned firsthand what is meant by the phrase blind justice. In the past 3 years I've been here, I have witnessed just how that justice works. It works well for some, for others it doesn't. But I believe in a higher justice system. And this justice system will be the system that will hold everybody. Let me put emphasis on that word, everybody, for what they do. That is, whether it is seen and unseen, for what you hear, what you think. We will all be held accountable for that. And then I say, you, Mr. Martin, you have no idea what my days and my nights are like. You have no idea what they have become. I start out my day early because I don't sleep well. And I walk out of my room, and I always look to the right because that's Robert's room. And I head for the track. I go to the track at the middle school he attended. And I go to that track early in the morning because there's not many people there, and no one can see the tears that are flowing from my face. Sometimes I run very hard, and then sometimes I walk. Because I'm trying to get myself together for my day's work. My day's work are long and hard day's work because I tried not to focus on anything but my work. That way it doesn't leave my mind any time to be idle. Because once my mind is idled, then I have time to think about Robert. And then that takes me down into a phase where I lose it. And I have to regain myself. I try hard. And it does happen several times during my day at work. I have to get up and walk away sometimes. But the thing is that my day starts out like my night. I wake up with tears. I go to bed with tears. I no longer receive the calls that we used to have each night. That hurts more, and that's where my mind goes each night. Because Robert would call me each night after band practice. And then he would call just to see how I'm doing, and he can tell from my voice. That's how sensitive in the relationship we had. Whether I'm having a good day or a bad day. There are times I may walk through one of the rooms in my house and catch a glimpse of one of his pictures. And just for a split second, I forget that he's not here. But then that reality comes back to me. That's what I deal with. You have no idea what my world is like now. I struggle trying to have the norm. Try to have a normal life now without my son. There were times through the 3 years, especially during the first 2 years of what happened to my son. Do you know what it's like to have somebody to call you the night your son died and don't even tell you the truth about what happened? Do you know what that's like? Do you know what it's like to look at the news to get information about what happened to your son? Do you know what that's like? I know, and I'll try to stay on task here, but I know within my heart what is meant by there is no greater love for a man to lay down his life for his friend, because that's what Robert did. It is because of Robert that this was exposed. It is because of Robert that past, current, and future band members at that school now know what goes on that has been hidden. And for a bit it may stop. But as my husband said, if we don't set an example, it just starts up again. We know the real truth hadn't been told. I've heard in every last one of these cases how Robert wanted it. He voluntarily went and did it. What proof do you have, except for the people who killed him? That says you didn't know Robert. Because if you knew Robert, you would know that's not true. But then I'm the mother, right? But the thing I'd like to say is, Mr. Martin, nothing will ever change the fact, you actually said it yourself, of the fact that, yes, you are responsible. You are. Nothing will ever change the fact that you killed my son. Nothing would ever change that. Nothing I can say, nothing you can say, nothing would ever change that. And it would always be a part of you. Those same words she said. It's amazing. Some of the same words you said, I have right here on my paper. And the agony and the pain that you've caused my son, my family. So I will continue to speak out. And I don't even call it hazing anymore, because that's not what it is it? It really is not what it is. We have, for a long time now, from what I've learned within the last 3 years, we can no longer turn our back. This is an opportunity, a very interesting time right now. No one should be doing anything but listening. Because what we call hazing now is not. It is not something lightly. It is not a competition. It is not all the little things people come up with in their mind. It's wrong. It is wrong. Within that band and what you took a part of, as you say, you don't think twice. I think I've heard another person that say, you don't think twice about what you're doing. Yes, with each strike, each blow, the position you held, you was probably proud of it. And having that control. I heard people that you work, the company you work for, talk about how good of an employee you are. Then that says how transition to what you've done in school as the president of the band, of the C. Those same qualities. Robert was an excellent employee as well. He worked for at least 3 years in the caf at the school. And he took care of each person in the cafeteria. He worked with any of them, from the dishwasher to the people that he did those same things. But you don't know that. And he too would have been a very valuable citizen and what he could have contributed. But I want to say in closing, I want you to know from the bottom of my heart, yes, I do believe in another justice system. And you will be held accountable, just like everybody in here will be held accountable for the things they do. But I want you to know from the bottom of my heart, I don't hate you. I don't wish you any ill will. I don't have any ill feelings towards your family. But what I would like to challenge you with, and it seems like you know about God and His Son, Jesus Christ, I ask that you ask for salvation for yourself. I hate to sit here and look into your face, not because I'm angry and hating you, because I don't want to see another young man sitting here, or a young lady, because it doesn't care about the race. It doesn't care about your financial standings. It doesn't care about how smart you are or how dumb you are. What was done to Robert was just the same as any gang on the street beating up a gang of people beating up on one person. So what we have to do here, as I ask that as you ponder on what you have done, ask for salvation for yourself. Ask for forgiveness. Confess your sin. Free yourself. But as far as with the courts and the things with hazing, yes, we have to send a strong message. That hasn't been sent yet. Not at all. So we're doing no better than what they did at FAMU. We turn our back and pretend it doesn't exist. But it does exist. Our latest victim, right in the news, you can read that. And you can see what they did. And people that caused that young man's death are doing the same thing. Well, it wasn't my fault. I didn't know. And the schools are doing the same thing. Well, we got paper. This has got to stop. We have to hold people accountable for what they do and what they don't do. We can no longer stand around and say, well, it wasn't my fault. We all have to stand up and take a stand against this brutal, cruel crime that is being committed. And we look at it so lightly, like it's nothing. Nothing. And then we look at the fact that my son lost his life, and that has repeatedly been ignored. So the fact that you lose your son they die and they're no longer with you, but to have it mashed in your face when somebody say, well, my child was good. And I'm not, please, I have nothing against you. And I'm not saying you're not. You probably are a very nice young man. But that line you crossed, and there are consequences for what you do when you do something wrong. I think that's the justice system. There are consequences. And granted, you shouldn't be sitting there alone. There's a whole line of people that went before you should be sitting right where you're sitting too. So, in my closing, I just wanted to let you know, I forgive you. I don't hate you at all. And I don't want you shedding tears for my family. Because our fight is not over. And my fight is not with you. My fight is with those who don't see the dangers, those who ignore and pretend, those schools that hide it, because they do. No school should ever be allowed to govern themselves, simply for this reason. But please know, I do not hate you, and I forgive you. I really do. I forgive you. I'd like to thank the courts for your patience, and I'd like to thank everyone for your attention. Thank you. Over.
further from the state?
Yes, Your Honor. I just want to kind of touch on just a little bit of what was said by some of the family and friends of the defendant. And when you heard him, you heard how wonderful the person the defendant was and how he did all these great things, but they also only saw a glimpse of his life. I'm sure this is guess. If her daughter, as she described as a beautiful young girl, worked at that place and he ran and did the hazing there, if they had some sort of hazing policy there, he was the leader of it, I'm sure she'd be singing a different tune here. It's because they only see a small glimpse of him. And I don't doubt that Mr. Martin's done wonderful things with his life. But it's analogous to a DUI manslaughter. We don't think those people are horrible people just because they got into a car and decided to drive it. They didn't have any real criminal intent. But when they decided to drink, to get behind the wheel, they're going to have to be held responsible for their actions. And that's what Mr. Martin did. He's the same thing. He doesn't have that evil intent. What he does is every time he gets in that bus, every time he presides as president and he puts somebody in the hot seat, every time he put somebody through the gauntlet, every time he did that, he's guilty of the crime. He's hazing. He's knowingly contributing to this crime that ultimately led to Mr. Champion's death. And he's directly responsible. And all the good things he's ever done with his life doesn't take away from what he did repeatedly as the leader of that bus by directing those other band members to hand out those savage beatings. So nothing takes it away. And I just wanted to point that out.
Mr. Michaels, anything further? No, sir.
Mr. Martin shouldn't be treated differently than anyone else. And nobody else here went to prison. There are a number of people that there had to be more than 6 people on the bus from all the testimony we have, but none of them were prosecuted. In terms of trying to find a solution to this horrible tragedy, a solution to this horrible tragedy is to have the Florida State Legislature punish the schools. It should be similar to what happened at Southern Methodist University when they violated football rules. Give them the death penalty. Florida A&M University has no business fielding a band. If you want to stop hazing, if truly that's what we want to do, then you have to punish the band. Take away funding from the band. Take away funding from the school. Because in this case, what we have is we have a university that's not only complicit, but that encourages these things. Everybody knows that for 50 years there was a crossing of bus seat at the Classic. The school has to know about it if kids in high school know about it. And so what does the school do to stop it? The band director, the assistant band director is the first guy off the bus to go eat. And nobody tries to secure the bus, and nobody takes the kids out of the bus, and nobody tries to stop it. It doesn't excuse what Dante Martin is part of, but he told you he's ashamed to be part of this. None of these students intended for this to happen. Dante Martin is going to be a convicted felon for the rest of his life. And for a person that has the kind of character and integrity he does, that's a mark that he's going to wear heavily. He's an individual, as you've heard, is not just a person who, it's not just a neighbor said, oh, the kid carried in the groceries. We have examples of from when he was a child, how he cared about other people. The court heard his eloquence when he addressed the Champion family. That came from his heart. And if that's the kind of communication that young man can give to other kids in the community, that's a way to stop hazing. What I would ask the court to consider is a term of community control followed by probation, 1,000 hours of community service with at least 500 dedicated to the education of these band members. Where does this have to start? This has to start at the high school level, because what happens at the high school level of these bands is these kids are hypnotized with pictures and slides and movies of this famous marching band that marches in France and is on TV and is in Hollywood. And when they get to school, what they're told is, You bear a responsibility to uphold these traditions because you owe it to those that came before you. Because they're giants that came before you, you're owed that. And when they get to the school, the band director points to a piece of dirt that's 100 yards long and tells them this is a sacred area. And these kids believe it. And so if we want to truly stop this, the way to do that is by campaign with the Florida State Legislature. Give them the death penalty. If you haze, if your band hazes, then you can no longer have a band. And the university should suffer financially from it. One of the letters, I know the court read all the letters, there was a letter from a former band director at Florida A&M University. His name is Anthony E. Simmons III. And he wrote on December 12th, to whom it may concern, I hope this communication finds you in the spirit of understanding. I am writing this letter in support of Dante Martin. My name is Anthony E. Simmons III, and I am currently an educator in Miami-Dade County Public Schools. Previously, I served as the director of lower brass for the Florida A&M University Marching 100. I met both Dante Martin and Robert Champion in August of 2007. They were both nice, humble, hard-working band members. Both students dedicated themselves to the betterment of the band. I worked closely with the band, spending hours with the students. Most people who are not in the Marching 100 would not understand the bond we share. The band operated all year long. Everyone on the band staff had marched in the band during their college years, so the bond was very close. I love both of these students like they were my little brothers. Robert being 10 years younger than me and Dante being 12 years younger than me, I was trying to serve as a mentor to these guys. I had served as a high school band director in Miami, Florida for 10 years prior to my employment at Florida A&M University. Several of my former students that I taught were now at FAMU in the band. We were truly like a family. Upon arriving at the university, I noticed that while many things had changed, some things remained the same. The band was still struggling to end hazing. While a student at FAMU from 1993 to 1997, I had been a leader in the band. I know how much work Dr. William P. Foster as well as Dr. Julian White had done to try to stop hazing. We would have momentary victories, but ultimately the hazing would pop back up. As a staff member, I listened as our director of bands would say over and over to the band not to be part of any hazing, vestiges of hazing, or anything that could be perceived as hazing. I talked to members and warned them against it. I feel like the students take those college years to find out whom they are. They experiment with many things they should not, and they do things to test their limits. Dante pushed himself to the limit physically and mentally. Oftentimes, they have a feeling of invincibility, which is false. They have not yet learned how precious and fragile life is. When these students decided to do this, they could not understand how dangerous this could be. Yes, we told them countless times, but people have been hazing for decades in the band and longer than that in other organizations on most college campuses. I'm not trying to excuse Dante for his actions. However, I will say that Dante is a good person who will bend over to help anyone he comes in contact with. He gave countless hours of service as a band member camp counselor and also a mentor to younger members of the band. Dante was not intending to march in the band for the 2011 season. He was asked to return by a sectional director and chose to comply. November 19, 2011 truly changed everyone's involved life. Dante had no business being part of this situation. He should have been out having a good time celebrating his last Florida Classic. Robert had absolutely no business on that bus. He had been a leader for his career in the Marching 100. With all due respect to the Champion family, I do not think that Robert would want his friend to go to prison. I believe Robert would be compassionate and forgive them. In my opinion, I think that these young people have learned a valuable lesson and would be better served to have to go out and try to save someone from making the same mistakes that they have made rather than go to prison. Dante is a good human being, and as ceremonial president of the bus, was not totally at fault for Robert's death. I know that I have not forgotten the feeling when I found out Robert died, so I know Dante will carry this burden of his actions for the rest of his life. I pray that the people making this decision will find room in their heart to give these kids a second chance. And he quotes Mahatma Gandhi saying, "The weak can never forgive because forgiveness is the attribute of the strong." And the reason I read that letter, Judge, is because here you have a guy who was a member of the faculty and a director in the band, and he's saying no matter what they told these people that they wouldn't stop hazing. Whatever they told these students, it didn't work. But what he fails to say is what actions did they take to stop this? If they knew a certain thing was going to happen at a certain time, then why didn't they go there to try to stop it? He also is of the opinion that it would be a valuable asset to have students who have been through this to counsel other members. So part of what I'm asking the court to consider is to allow Dante Martin to kind of be the counterbalance in terms of talking to these young people from the high school level in terms of how hazing can affect not only your own life but somebody else's life. And I think, we heard from Colonel Wellington, that's a valuable tool in terms of getting changes accomplished. That's all I have.
Thank you. Certainly a lot has been said here today, and the court has listened carefully to the argument of counsel and the testimony of all of the witnesses. This is, at the first instance, a legal analysis, not an analysis based on choices given to the court to exercise in its discretion. The court must apply the law here. And the law is that Mr. Martin must be sentenced according to the guidelines unless it has been proven by a preponderance of the evidence that there are mitigating circumstances justifying a departure. And the primary argument made by defense counsel is that the court should depart because Mr. Champion was a willing participant in the incident leading to his death. There isn't a lot of case law on the issue, certainly nothing close to what is before the court today. Really, the cases which exists are in the field of sex cases involving underage victims. Those cases apparently suggest that even when a victim is 12 years old, the court may be able to find, if the evidence supports the finding, that the victim is a willing participant and therefore depart. The has been brought to the court's attention involves a DUI manslaughter, in which the trial court departed based upon the willing participant of the victims who were killed in that accident, who got into the car apparently knowing, or where they should have known, that the defendant was under the influence. Under those facts, the appellate court held that the and instructing that trial courts were not to apply a civil comparative negligence kind of analysis in these cases. And so we don't have a lot of instruction from the appellate court. The court is mindful that Judge Lubit concluded that it was appropriate to depart, finding that the victim was a willing participant in the incident. Certainly the court respects Judge Lubit and, while certainly not governed by, is mindful of his decision in this regard. But we argued this to some degree, counsel argued, and after considering those arguments and the case law, the court is prepared to find that Mr. Champion was a willing participant in the incident, and therefore and the evidence supports that, because the evidence was that Mr. Champion left the limousine after he was driven back, that he went into the hotel room. I believe he went upstairs. He came back downstairs and walked voluntarily. That he was asked, "Are you sure?" and was told, and he told his companion, and his name escapes me right now, "I'm sure." So he had made the decision. His inner conscience about hazing not basis. And now the question is, should the court depart? Which is it's also a harder question. I think that there could be a lot of discussion at the appellate level about, and hopefully some instruction for trial courts to rely on. This is a profoundly difficult case. It's difficult for many reasons. I think it's been demonstrated here today. It certainly was limitless potential, that he has a fine and loving family and support system. There appears to be no doubt about that. It was repeated over and over. And it could certainly be argued that the penitentiary, the Department of Corrections, is not the place for someone like him. No criminal record, in all likelihood, will never have any further criminal. Were so profoundly disturbing. The court is mindful of the famous quote by Edmund Burke, which is that the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And so what was painted for the jury and what was seen by the court was a circumstance into which, yes, Mr. Champion, and if you recall, they called him the example, walked into this bus and was subjected to a level of brutality that the medical examiner's testimony and photographs spoke to in a most horrific way. And that can't have been something that was quiet or not noticeable or subtle. The brutality of that had to have been apparent. And to stand by, much less to coordinate, to choreograph, to orchestrate that event is perhaps more than good doing nothing. And it is also important, I think, to consider who was Mr. Champion. He wasn't even some kid, some new kid. He was a leader. He had been there. He was a drum major. He worked so hard for that band and did so much. And then for him to be subjected to this feels additional to the entire event. Just more reprehensible that it was a person of his stature. So when there's talk of forgiveness, really forgiveness doesn't have a role in the legal system. We are instructed by the law that the primary purpose of sentencing is punishment. All other things are secondary. And the court is very mindful of all that has been said about the possible culpability of FAMU. The court heard testimony that the bus driver paid by FAMU got off the bus when she arrived. She was well known to these kids who rode this bus, left the bus running and the lights on and the air conditioning on, and conveniently left those kids in the bus. The only adult on the bus arrives, gets up, dusts off, and walks away. No, come on kids, let's go, get your stuff, none of that. The court heard all of that and has considered all of those factors. This court listened very carefully to the evidence in this case because this is such a remarkable case. Nonetheless, back to the issue of sentencing, and after consideration of all of those issues, the court will depart to some degree. And on the counts before the court, Mr. Martin is adjudicated guilty. On count 1, he is sentenced to 77 months in the Department of Corrections with credit for time served. On count 2, he is sentenced to, would the state stipulate to a time served sentence, or what is your position on the possible double jeopardy issues? Do you want to be heard further on that?
I'm not in a position to stipulate to any.
The court would sentence Mr. Martin to 77 months concurrent. On count 3, he is sentenced to time served, and on count 4, he is sentenced to time served. He will pay court costs and the costs of prosecution. What are the costs of investigation, counsel?
Your Honor, I don't have those with me.
Counsel is ordered to submit the cost of investigation, if any, to the court with a proposed order. After defense counsel has reviewed the proposed order, The court will reduce the monetary amounts to judgment, and I believe that concludes this hearing.
We do have another motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. You have a motion for bond. I beg your pardon. Go ahead, counsel.
Good morning, Your Honor. Your Honor, I've filed a motion for an appellate bond in this particular matter. I've also attached to our motion the memorandum of law, which I think the court has read, and I'm sure the court has read the cases as well. The issues before the court today are, number one, and most importantly, is whether an appeal is taken for delay or in good faith on grounds not frivolous and fairly debatable. As the court read the case law, that standard for us is a very low standard. It doesn't even reach the standard of probable cause. I think the court is well aware of the numerous motions that we filed pre-trial in this case, as well as the numerous issues that came across the court's opportunity to decide. Those issues are all fairly debatable issues, and so I would ask the court respectfully today, in light of the fact that Mr. Martin from day one in this particular case has never been at risk of flight. He has attended every particular hearing. He has met with counsel on numerous occasions. I would ask the court respectfully today to set a reasonable bond, and I would ask the court to set a bond of no more than $10,000. There's no issue that Mr. Martin would flee. He is going to have a job back in Tallahassee with his employers. He is an individual of very modest means. He makes not a great deal of salary there in Tallahassee, and I think that his family and all his friends will support him to make sure that once the appeal is decided, that we all come back before this court in order to have this court render carrying out that decision.
Motion for appellate bond is denied.
Your Honor, do you have any basis for the court?
Exercises its discretion in denying an appellate bond. All right, I believe we have one more case. I have a sentencing to do, Mr. Faulkner.